Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast. Powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. With Philip Nothard and Curtis Hutchinson, bringing you all the chatter that matters.
Well, we did it, Phil. We met up for our annual selfie. We've been talking about it for the last few weeks, and it was a bit of a snatched photograph as well, wasn't it? Because we were only actually together for probably less than 5 minutes, because I know you were going somewhere and I had to rush off somewhere, but we did seize the moment, didn't we?
We did. I mean, the day didn't pan out as we probably both expected it to do. Wasn't the best day to be making a long journey on the motorway network that we have with the weather and accidents. I think you beat me slightly by you did 7 hours round trip. Mine was about 8 hours round trip. One of them I can blame Stephen Whitton from Menable Moments, because he rang me just as I was should have been exiting the M6 to the M42 and missed my exit. But anyway, which just put another 30 minutes onto my already long journey. But anyway, I won't hold it against him. Yeah.
It is a great event for
awesome.
networking, isn't it? And that's really the beauty of the AM Live. There's some really interesting companies to see, the exhibitors. But it's all about networking, because as an industry, we all know each other. And I'm sure you were pretty much the same. You'd sort of go a few paces, bump into someone, forget where you were going, go a few paces more, bump into someone else. And it was a day full of conversations.
It is. Great. And everybody is there. I mean, you say, the danger is you don't get to speak to everybody you want to speak to, and you do get into lots of conversations. And I think whatever time you're expecting to sort of exit, start an hour early, because by the time you get to the exit, you've had another 2 or 3 conversations with people on your way out. But no, I mean, again, great event. I mean, you can just tell it's getting stronger and stronger each year now, can't you? I mean, it was busy.
Yeah.
Lots of people there, lots of key industry people, and lots of, as you say, great exhibitors, and lots of great conversations and debates within the theatres as well. So there is a reason it might need to be extended a little bit now. It was that.
Yeah. And one of my observations would be there were a lot of new companies there as well, exhibiting a lot of software and AI tech companies that certainly I wasn't aware of. There were quite a few new names to me, so it was fascinating just going around and finding out what they were doing.
It was, and talking about events, a couple of events coming up. The Vehicle Remarketing Association seminar is next Wednesday, the 19th of November. I think we've got 226 registered now, Curtis. We're a bit over subscribed at the minute, but we will get some fallouts. But the registration is still open. That's down at the Slate on the 19th of November. So fingers crossed for me, Curtis, that the network is in my favour as I'm opening and closing the event and sharing it all the way through. But anyway.
Another road trip for you.
Another road trip, yes.
You'll be getting there nice and early and leaving there pretty late. Yeah.
But we have got some others as well, and we did miss this one the other week. But we got the Motor Trader Awards, obviously straight after the VRA seminar. That's so there'll be people trying to leave at sort of 4 o'clock from Warwick there and get into London. Those that are attending the Motor Trader Awards on that evening down in London. And then the following week, Curtis, we've got the Car Dealer Used Car Awards down at the brewery in London. That's on the 24th of November, isn't it?
Yeah, and that really is a big event, and I'm sure many listeners will already be registered for that. So we'll report on that afterwards and go through some of the winners. And there's another industry event actually, AM100. The new AM100 is being announced on Tuesday, the 18th of November, and AM will be hosting a webinar for that. So all the registration details are on the AION website. So again, we'll pick up on that afterwards.
Yeah. And on to this week then. So we've got a packed show today, and we do say that every time now, but we do get yourself a drink or whatever you're doing, wherever you are listening to today's podcast. Buckle up, it's going to be a great one here. And we're going to be joined by Matt Muilenburg, who's the Chief Product Officer of Impel, who was exhibiting at AM Live this week, and they're a US-based business, and they've been using AI to transform car buying consumer journeys for the last 10 years, and is now available here in the UK. So we're hearing some of Matt's thoughts around AM Live and the use of AI within the automotive retailing sector.
And we're joined in the second half by our mental wealth guru, Stephen Whitton, and he'll be talking about getting teams talking, especially with some of the anxiety and stress around AI.
You're listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors.
Before we look at this week's headlines, here's an extract from our OEM special podcast from last week with Chinese car maker AION Auto UK. Now, they made their trade debut at AM Live during the week and will be going on sale in the UK in the second quarter of 2026. So here's UK MD Jon Wakefield, formerly MD of Volvo and Harwood Group, taking us through some of the background on the brand.
Should we start with some background on AION and tell us, obviously, about the size of the brand, where it operates and its European rollout, and probably as a bit more of a follow-up to that, thinking obviously specifically at the UK, and talk us through that sort of initial launch plan following AM Live event as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's take a few minutes and trace it all the way back to its origins. I mean, the GAC brand has actually been in existence in China since 1997, although the company started building automotive products, firstly buses, I believe, back in the 1950s, and has become really quite a powerhouse in the Chinese car market. If you look at all of the brands, because in China GAC sells under 3 different brands, if you add all of those numbers up, it's within the top 10 of all Chinese car manufacturers. And in the EV segment, the key focus EV segment in China, the AION brand and High-Tech sell between them a volume which is within the top 5 of all brands for EV sales in China. The company has quite an interesting history of joint ventures in the UK, and we'll come on to talk about it. We're not a national sales company in the traditional sense. We've set up a UK registered company with 2 shareholders, one being GAC, one being Jamil. And that history of joint venture approach is quite strong in GAC's history. And in China, the company has 2 main JVs, one with Honda and one with Toyota. And those are manufacturing JVs. So they've been in existence for around 20 years now. And what that means is that the quality and focus on customer satisfaction that is legendary within the Toyota and Honda world is very much imbued within the way that GAC works, in actual fact. And that's been carried forward into its own brand products, which have now for 9 consecutive years won the top space in the JD Power survey in China. So whilst we're setting up in the UK, we're not a startup, and I'd like to make that point quite clearly. This is a combination of 2 very established organisations. One, the GAC that I've just described, but also the Jamil organisation. Whilst GAC are a very established manufacturer and of cars, the Jamil business is a distributor and retailer that's been operating across the globe since 1945, actually. So there's two really strong companies in the background here. So coming to the UK, and what we're going to do here is we're launching here in Q2 next year with two products. Those will both be battery electric vehicles and as the start of our portfolio growth. We're looking to grow that portfolio to 6 vehicles by 2008, and then in the year after that another couple of cars, which are a little bit further down the line. We've got opportunity to really influence some of those later cars in terms of their, fit for the UK market.
And I mean, a good point you made earlier is just that the fact that you're not a new brand, you're an established brand. You just might be a new entrant in terms of that name into the UK, which is a clear distinction, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it's, we keep talking about startup, and I keep saying no, we're not a startup. We represent a car company that's extremely well formed and well funded, and the other owner of our company is again a very successful retailer and distributor business. So we're launching here in the UK rather than a startup.
And you mentioned that the vehicles coming to the UK, and you said that you got those 2 electric in Q2 of next year. Are you considering other fuel derivatives, or is that something that is still to be defined as yet, or can you not say? Should I say, John?
No. Well, we won't be selling ICE cars in the UK. So the first 2 are pure battery electric vehicles. Then we'll have a PHEV product coming into the market in 2027, and after that a mix of PHEV, BEV, and also there are other technologies available to us which we will evaluate in the next months. For example, REEV, range extender electric vehicles, which are seeing a second generation of a second wave of interest in other markets. So we'll look at that as well, and if that's appropriate for the UK, we certainly have the opportunity to bring those car lines in. And I think it's a really important sort of point to raise here in terms of the way the JV is structured and our influence upon GAC and the importance to them of coming to Europe. I mean, the UK is the second largest EV market here, but of course it's a real sort of gateway market to Europe. We're really able to influence a lot of things actually, and future product lines and formats and design is actually something that we will get very heavily involved in moving forward.
I mean, yeah, Curtis, very insightful from John there in terms of the plans of AION and their entrance into the UK market, but very, very clearly, emphasising there a couple of times that they're not a startup. They are an established brand, and they've got that experience with Honda and Toyota in terms of that distribution and joint JV partnerships with those brands as well.
Yeah, it's a fascinating insight, isn't it? And the rest of the interview really does lay out AION's plans for the UK, and specifically how it is approaching dealers, and it's really looking at partnerships. Going back to that theme of joint ventures, it really sees its partnerships with retailers being almost like joint ventures themselves. And one of the things that came out at the AM Live event was this modular design for showrooms, which looks incredibly easy to set up into a showroom and then take down and put into another showroom, as that particular showroom grows in size. And they've got it all thought out, haven't they?
They have, and I mean, John and Duncan, who we spoke to on the full interview there, they've got that experience within the sectors, and the exec team that they're getting on board. You only need to look at some of the recruitment that's been taking place for the UK entrance. Some significant names and experience within that. So, as I say, this was the full interview there with Duncan and John was shared on your podcast feed from earlier on in the week, at 5 a.m. on the morning of AM Live. We did manage to get our selfie our annual selfie, me and Curtis together in front of AION's stand. And I came away with a bar of chocolate and a power bank as well, just to add to that. So
yeah, I did notice that, Phil, because they ran out. You were the last person they handed them to, and I'm standing there empty-handed.
Yes. So it's when I get a sugar low, I've got some milk chocolate to go at. But I appreciate that. But we will now get onto this week's big headlines and heading over to AM Online, and this was something we touched on last week with Suzuki when we had the interview there, was talking about obviously the Dealer Attitude Survey, and that is that Lexus tops NFDA's Dealer Attitude Survey as wider sentiment softens. So been a bit of a shift around, isn't it, a little bit with this one?
Yeah, now this is the second survey of the year, and it is called the summer edition because all the research takes place over the course of the summer. But they had really good response to this. So they had responses from just over 2,340 sites across 33 networks. And that effectively represents 61% of the UK dealer network. So it is very, very representative. And why is the survey important? It's really because it's that barometer, this twice yearly barometer on how dealers feel about their OEM partners. And it is worth heading over to the NFDA website because you can download the whole report, and it's split across it must be 20, 30 different sectors, different areas where they're being researched and polled on what they're thinking. So it's a very, very important piece of research.
Yeah, and we'll go on to shortly in a bit more detail, but in the AM, the partway through is the mixed picture across franchises, saying that 8 brands improved their overall rating compared to the winter 2025 edition, while 23 actually experienced a decline, saying that Ford recorded the biggest improvement, up 2.1 points, helped by stronger scores for its current electric vehicle lineup. I wonder if that's the Puma E.
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it?
that would. That's I think
£3,750. Thank you very much.
Take some orders on that one. And then also that Suzuki, Volkswagen, Land Rover, and Nissan also posted gains. And at the other end, several Stellantis brands, including Citroën, Peugeot, Abarth, and Fiat, saw a sharp fall, with the Citroën falling 13 places to 32nd position there, scoring 2.2 points for vehicle supply, a 61% fall on the previous survey there.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a shout out to Tristan Young, a friend of the pod. He's behind Auto Sunday because he's actually produced a chart ranking of all the OEMs, but he's color coded it so you can see who's up, who's down, and who's unchanged from the last survey. So, as you say, Lexus number one, taking the top slot from Kia. Kia have actually held it for the last 5 surveys. But looking at some of the rises, because it must be said, most of the brands, there's 32 brands surveyed, most of them have actually dropped since the last survey. But those that have improved include Ford, Nissan, Volkswagen, Subaru, and Land Rover. And then within the top 10, we've got Mercedes-Benz, Suzuki, and we did that interview with David Cately a week or so ago, where we were talking about the previous NFDA's Dealer Attitude Survey, where they'd actually dropped down, but they've rallied, they've gone up a percentage point. So a strong result for them. But what really caught my attention, Phil, was there's 2 new entrants this year, and they're both in the top 5. They're both Chinese. So we've got a Moda at number 3, and BYD also at number 3. So they're both joint number 3, and their overall rating was 8.4, and that compares with Lexus at 9.2. So not actually that far behind.
No, straight in there, and obviously the network liking at the minute what is happening there, isn't it? So again, like we say, the full details of the survey is available through the NFDA website, and if you look up Tristan on the LinkedIn, it does give a very nice high level summary of the movers within that group as well. But we're going to head over to the Times now, and this is on the ahead of the forthcoming budget on the 26th of November, and as things start to unintentionally or intentionally, Curtis, leak out from the government on their intentions of what to expect from the forthcoming budget. There's 2 stories that the Times did cover, and they kind of linked with this. And the first one is pay per mile electric car levy will stall uptake of EVs, and this is urging motorists to buy electric vehicles, but then hitting them with a new pay per mile tax undermines confidence and will stall uptake of EVs. And this is that the ministers have been warned from the sector on that. And on the back of it is that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is looking at ways to counter a fall in income. And this is to do with the fuel duty, isn't it? It's not the road tax or the VD. This is the fuel duty that she's trying to counter with the uptake of EVs, and understood to be seriously considering a 3 pence per mile tax on drivers of electric vehicles. So this has really got the sector talking around this potential tax on EVs that's coming from the budget on the 26th.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, the Times ran this story, and I think they were slightly ahead of the curve. I think they broke this particular story, and I must say their automotive industry coverage is really, really good at the moment. And so they're reporting on this 3p per mile tax on drivers of electric cars. And as you say, this is it's not a replacement of VED. That's another matter. We still don't know what the government will do with VED, which is EVs obviously exempt at the moment. But this is to make up for the shortfall in fuel duty as we see more EV sales and less ICE sales. Then there's an imbalance in fuel duty coming into the government's coffers. So within this story, motoring and consumer groups naturally express concern at the proposed policy, branding it entirely the wrong measure at the wrong time. And car makers are also understood to be furious about the measure, given the strict sales targets they must meet, and believe that it undermines the electric car grant announced in the summer. So there's a lot of confliction in this, and I reading the story, it does look as though it's been leaked from a fairly senior source. So I think it's the government wanting to get it out there as a talking point ahead of the budget.
Yeah, and I think what the concern from the sector, one alongside the bad timing as the uptake of full battery electric vehicles is still challenging in many ways, and the volatility for the market. But actually, because it's been leaked, it hasn't got the clarity and the detail needed. So you're already hearing where consumers are going into retailers and they're not looking at EVs saying, well, they don't know what it's going to cost them long term, because they're not fully clear of when the new pence per mile will start, whether it will hit used EVs as well as new EVs, etc. So it's actually created this sort of caution and risk around the unknown element. And that's the bit that when you start to hear these leaks ahead of the budget, the lack of clarity is part of what is causing the problem. I think long term, a lot of people are aware that EVs do need to be taxed in a similar way to the way the government gets their revenue from ICE vehicles. But alongside not being at the right time in terms of, there's still lots there. And we're talking about 33% ZEV mandate in 2026, which is a big jump from where we are today in 2025. But the lack of clarity whether it's going to be backdated on used EVs, nobody really knows. And that's the bit that's causing the problem. But connected with this was a story that came out a similar time through the times. And as you say, they are really ahead of this on this one. But vans to swerve EV pay per mile tax rate, but other vehicles to be hit. And this is because they're talking about vans being exempt, but actually thinking about the plug-in hybrid sector actually being charged as well.
Yeah, so again, a very well sourced story this, and within the Times report it says electric vans are not in scope for this planned 3 pence per mile levy under these proposals, but plug-in hybrid vehicles, which it will be applied to and will be included in the scheme, albeit at a discounted rate. So we don't know what that will mean, because obviously with FEVs that they're using fuel and duty is being paid on the fuel that goes into the tank. But this does mean that drivers of plug-in hybrids will pay both fuel duty on the petrol or diesel that they use, as well as the pence per mile levy. And I think certainly in what I've been reading, we're talking about 2028. But again, this is adding to the confusion, because a lot of potential buyers in the market will think this will be coming in next year, next financial year.
And I know that in New Zealand, there are similar charges on a pay per mile basis. But New Zealand is a slightly different established market than here in the UK. But I think to your point on that plug-in hybrid, that there are drivers, and I'm not saying I'm one of them, but there are drivers out there that probably never plug their plug-in hybrid in. That they will be driving it on the full ICE element of the vehicle most of the time, if not all the time, and just using the regen rather than plugging it in. Now, how are they going to be taxed? Because they're basically driving it as an ICE vehicle with very little use of the EV element. So there's a lot to come out of this, but it will hopefully become a lot more clear on the 26th of November, or not. But
well, yeah, exactly. Would you like to know what Robert Forrester of Virtue Motors said about it?
Yes, please.
He says it sounds like a bureaucratic nightmare. And he goes on to say within this story, we are going to see less incentive for EVs to be sold. And given the fact that the sector is under intense pressure just to hit the 33% target next year, it just puts another nail in the coffin of the new EV market. So Robert, he's not impressed, is he?
No, and neither should he be, to be fair, at the minute with everything going on.
You're listening to All the Chatter That Matters, a special weekday episode of Motor Trade Radio. Powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising.
Next up on the Motor Trade Radio podcast, we're delighted to be joined by Matt Muilenburg, the Chief Product Officer of Impel. The US-based business has been using AI to transform car buyer customer journeys for the last 10 years, working with some of America's biggest dealer groups, and it has grown to a $1 billion turnover business. And it was launched in the UK over 3 years ago. Now, Matt is in the UK this week visiting AM Live, so we're going to get his take on what he thought of some of the AI tech on show at the NEC, and hear a little bit about Impel's plans for the UK ahead of a forthcoming full-length Motor Trade Radio Supplier Special. So welcome to the UK and Motor Trade Radio, Matt.
Curtis, it's so great to be here. Thank you for taking the time with me.
All right, it's great, and I think we had the pleasure of meeting each other at AM Live this week as well, Matt. So it's a pleasure to get you on, and especially in terms of whilst you're over here in, as you say, in the UK this week to do some visiting with your customers and potential customers, and obviously be at AM Live. So, as we say, thanks for taking the time out. But let's start off with Matt. Tell us a little bit about Impel and some of the AI-based services you are providing to the dealer sector at the minute.
Yeah, Impel is a really amazing company. It was founded about 10 years ago using AI capabilities in computer vision to create super high quality imagery that dealers could use on their website and third-party marketplaces to merchandise their cars. That early lead in AI gave us an opportunity to be at the table as generative AI came into its own and started to hit the market. We brought our first generative AI product to the industry roughly 4 years ago. At that time, primarily focused around sales, the sales department in the store, and how do you help optimize the business, take out some of the overhead that it takes to manage the leads that come into that department, and drive the dealership forward.
And thinking about, obviously, in terms of maybe, in terms of where you operate globally, but here in the UK, I mean, you've been in the UK, as Curtis said there, for over 3 years, and you're working with some very significant number of dealers already here in the UK, I believe.
Yeah, we have a sizable footprint in this market. Very proud of what the team here is able to do and the types of relationships that we've developed with our customers. It's such a great relationship and fun to be here because I've had a chance to sit with several of them and listen to what their needs and challenges are and be able to map that to what we're working on. It's really exciting to see the alignment of the industry with the things that are coming over the next several months.
And in terms of the UK dealers, I mean, are they pretty receptive to what you're offering, and how important is the UK to you as a business?
Oh yeah, the UK is definitely one of our top 3 markets globally. We love the business that we do here. The markets in the US, the United Kingdom, Australia have a lot of commonalities, but they also have a lot of differences. And it's been a fun journey for us to take the core solutions that we offer for sales, service, chat, and other capabilities, and really sit with our partners here in the UK, understand their businesses, the variations in how they work, and to deploy that technology to make their stores more effective. I'll tell you, it's working because I look at some of the large dealer groups that we engage with where when I started here 18 months ago, we had 1 or 2 or 3 stores in their collection. And now we're up to 50, 60, or 70 stores in some instances and on a path to be working with the entire dealer group. We've got tremendous traction. The products are working really well at scale. And consumers seem to be very accepting of the engagement with an AI. As long as they're getting their questions answered and making forward motion, you see tremendous engagement and tremendous opportunities being created for the salespeople in the store.
So Matt, I mean, back to the question in terms of naming some of those dealer groups. I mean, you operate with over 300 customers here in the UK. Just for those that are not working with you, and they might want to look at how it works with those in the market that are using your AI functionality. Can you name some of those operations that you are actually dealing with here in the UK?
Yeah, of course. In fact, I was out for dinner last night with folks from Sytner, from John Clark, from Sinclair. We work with a whole number of the largest dealer groups as well as individual points and single stores here in the country. The business has been growing and we continue to have great reception from the marketplace.
And Matt, as we've said, you've been in the UK this week for AM Live. What was your take? Yeah, what did you make of some of the certainly AI tech on show compared to what you have in the US?
I always love coming to trade shows like this. AI is the buzzword everywhere right now, and it feels like every legacy company you've heard of has now slapped AI into their name. I walked the floor. I looked at every booth in there, and probably 2/3 of them referenced AI in some way as it relates to their business. It's hard in a short moment in time to get a sense of whether or not what they're doing is real or if it's just putting those letters out there because it helps build their brand. But I think it's an exciting moment for the industry because the attention is on AI and the impact that it can have at retail. And I think it's generally good to have participants that are looking to get into that space and to generate that conversation with the retailers that exist. I look at a lot of these companies, and what you often will find is while they say they're an AI company, what they've really done is just put a skin on OpenAI or one of the other solutions that's out there. And so it becomes a challenge for the dealer to really understand who's a professional organization that understands this industry and how to deploy this technology in our industry versus a newcomer or even a legacy player that's just claiming to be in that space. It's important to do diligence and understand what the capabilities really are.
And in terms of comparing markets, where would you say the UK is in relation to the US in what we're doing with AI in automotive retailing compared with what you're doing in the States?
Oh, that's such a great question. When I worked in the website business back in the day, it was easy to say that the other markets were many years behind. The reality with AI is things are changing so quickly and the competencies and capabilities come so fast that is the UK behind? Maybe. If they are, it's by a month or two or three. The differences between the markets, they're almost non-existent. The dealers have embraced it here. They understand the impact that it has on their ability to nurture customers and generate sales. And the industry is full on. I don't see a lot of differences between the two markets. There may be more solutions that are richer and deeper that exist in the US because the market there happens to be larger, but it's, again, months or weeks until those same capabilities make it over to the UK as well.
I mean, that's fascinating that the difference in time is so tight, because I remember back in the day, as you referenced, with websites and that online tech, the US did have a distinct lead, and it was certainly more than weeks and months. In some cases it was years. I'm just wondering, just one last thing on AI. Are there any differences in the way that dealers approach AI here compared with the US in terms of how receptive they are to AI?
Yeah, I'll be entirely transparent with you here. I really enjoy our UK customers because they're much more invested in the details of what the technology does and how it fits with their people and processes inside their stores. Now, that's not non-existent in the US. There are some amazing operators that pay that same level of attention. But what you tend to see is a rush to adoption in America. People want to do something, they're not sure what to do, and they sign up for the shiny object that comes in. My customers here, they lean in hard. They push us to be excellent at what we do. And I really appreciate that because it means we have true partnership with our customers. And they've invested not only in the technology that we're providing, but in their own staff and their own teams to take advantage of that technology. And we work so hard to bridge that gap between what we're delivering and how it needs to be implemented in the store. It's refreshing to have such great partners in the delivery and execution.
And finally, on that, Matt, I mean, I think a lot of people, and you probably get this in terms of a lot of your conversations, whether that's over in the US or in other markets, and particularly here in the UK, worrying about AI replacing the human element in this market. I mean, what's the reality from your perspective in what you're seeing in the dealer sector, and how does the balance between people and technology actually work in practice?
Yeah, everybody has fears of AI replacing jobs, and there certainly are jobs in industries that are getting replaced by AI. In automotive, what we really see happening is work that people typically don't want to do in the dealership, the relentless pursuit of a lead that came in 3 days, 7 days, 15 days ago, stuff the humans don't pick up and continue to chase because there's this continuous inbound flow of new leads to go after. Those are the jobs that get impacted here. And it's not really an impact on those jobs because those tend to be high turnover roles inside the store, people that you're continually replacing because people simply don't like to do that sort of business development work that's required in the nurturing process. I think what you really see, I truly believe this, is that the level of skill that the employee has is going to continually go up over time. We're going to hire and continue to employ humans on the ground that have the expertise to bridge the gap between what the AI can do and the reality of the real world moment where you need insight and intelligence that only the humans can provide. I like to compare it to the game of chess. You may remember when Big Blue beat the Russian master champion many, many years ago. And at that point in time, people declared that it was the end of chess. And in fact, what happened was an era was ushered in where the human partnered with the machine could consistently beat the machine. That lasted for about 20 years. I think we're in that same boat here where, yes, you can deploy AI, but AI can't do all of it. You need the human partnered with it. And so we see this engagement happening where more and more dealers are positioning a staff member in the store that is the AI guardian or the AI champion inside that dealership, who manages those moments of what we call human on the loop, where the AI has done its work and has hit this point where the expertise on the floor, the expertise in the showroom is needed to take it to the next step. So you begin to create this environment where it's human plus machine that makes the business better overall.
That would be reassuring for many of our listeners, Matt. That I think there's obviously that element of everyone's out of a job because AI is going to replace them, but that, as you say, that's not the case, is it? And clearly that's starting to become ever more apparent.
Everyone wants to work with a trusted automotive professional when they walk into the dealership. They may be coming in and asking for the name of that AI agent that then had engaged them originally. But the reality is, once you're in the store, you want to be with somebody who has product knowledge that can show you how the vehicle works, that can help you understand the purchase that you've made. That type of relationship, I think, is key to how this business will continue to advance forward. We're not going to get rid of humans. We're going to have better humans that are better at the jobs that they have because they can be focused on those tasks that add the tremendous value to the consumer that's buying that vehicle.
Well, Matt, many thanks for that. It was a fascinating insight into how you're addressing this part of the market and allaying some of those fears and concerns around AI within the retailing sector. And because you're clearly showing how it can work with humans rather than replacing humans. So thanks for that. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been great talking to you. And we'll be hearing a lot more from Impel in our upcoming supplier special. And we'll let you know when that's available. So many thanks, Matt.
Fantastic to be here. Thank you for all the time.
Well, some great insight there from Matt, and it's always fascinating getting the insight from across the Atlantic, because I know from previous years when I used to go to the NADA convention in the US, and certain things the American market led in, other things the UK markets led in, and there's so much that can be learnt, from those examples.
Yeah, definitely. So they, do tune in to that, and we've got more coming from Impel in the near future. So we'll head off back to the headlines, and we're going over to AM Online, and this is that the used car market continues milestone growth streak as EV sales surge. Now, this is on the back of the third quarter used car transactional data that came out this week from the SMMT there via the DVLA, saying that the used car market grew 2.8% in the third quarter of this year, with more than 2 million vehicles changing hands, according to the latest figures from the SMMT. So, a great quarter. Just over 2 million transactions taking place in the third quarter, kind of not dissimilar to what we saw in Q1 of this year.
Yeah, exactly. And, it brings year to date up to just over 6 million units. And that's an increase of 2.4%. So getting closer and closer to how we round off the year and how close that will be to 8 million. It's I can't remember what your current forecast is, but it is 7 million and something, isn't it?
It is, yeah, about 7.7 million for the year. So we're kind of on track for that, because Q4 is usually a softer quarter, and the pre-pandemic average is down to about 1.6 million. But there is details in this, and around that EV marketplace and how that's holding up in terms of that used market on the back of what's happening in the new.
Yeah, battery electric vehicles recorded the strongest growth of all the fuel types, rising 44% to 80,614 transactions and achieving a record 4% market share. And we've been seeing that repeatedly now in all of the quarterly results, coming from a very low base to something more established now, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, as I say, it's to the point there. He's coming from a low base, but it is growing as volume enters that used vehicle marketplace. And some of this, let's not kid ourselves, some of this could be the tactical activity that's taking place, because they do also, trigger a used transaction, because when they're registered new, the car's then taxed in whatever name it's going to be taxed in new, and then subsequently that is sold as a discounted used vehicle, and that then triggers a used transaction at the DVLA there. So there is a little bit of context required behind that, but the reality is that market is growing, but there's still a lot to do. I think clearly as we head into through this fourth quarter of the year, there we've got what we were talking about earlier with some of the challenges coming from the UK government in terms of the taxation side of things. So it's still a challenging time for retailers, but I think optimistic that we've broken that 2 million mark again in the third quarter.
Yeah, and staying with the used car market, the final news story for this week is from Motor Trader, and the headline is Motorpoint first half profits surge 80% to £3.6 million. So it's always interesting, always fascinating to look at Motorpoint, because as one of the few remaining listed companies in the car retailing sector, it's a good barometer for how the used car market is looking. And this is for the first half of this year. So also of interest, because we're really bang up to date here. So looking at the performance, pre-tax profits were up 80% to £3.6 million on turnover that was up 15% to £647.7 million. And Motorpoint used car sales rose 7.4% over this period compared to the overall market, which was up 2.8%. And within this report, Motorpoint said finance commission income remains subdued due to relatively high interest rates. But there's also some interesting comments here from Mark Carpenter, chief exec of Motorpoint, who said that I am pleased to report another strong performance in the first half of the year, in which we increased our retail volumes by 8.9% and gross profits by 10.7%. And he goes on to say we significantly outperformed the wider used car market during the period, demonstrating that our proposition to make car buying easy continues to resonate strongly with customers.
Yeah, it's great. As you say, a good barometer of the market, and we've seen a few stories there previously for Motorpoint when it's been a challenging market for them and more generally, and then obviously trying to see that recovery. And next up, finally, we have our Men-Able moments from Stephen Whitton, who's looking at getting teams talking, and he was also down at AM Live this week.
You're listening to all the chatter that matters on Motor Trade Radio, powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all the biggest car retailing headlines from across the media, available on demand, wherever you are, and on your podcast feed. Next up is our latest Men-Able moment, looking at mental wealth and well-being awareness and best practice in the automotive sector. With me, Stephen Whitton.
Yeah, hi everyone, it's Men-Able Moments time. Hope you're well. Going to keep this fairly short, sharp and to the point this week, because I'm aware that there's a lot going on. And that was really emphasised this week by anyone who attended AM Live, and you walk round and I don't know about you, but it just felt like an AI conference, because pretty much everyone there was talking about AI, and there were some new brands there represented as well. And what I meant by all of that is, as I look round that exhibition, I couldn't help but think the change that we've been predicting and the change that's going to be really big for our industry is kind of upon us already. And that brings me to the point of this week's Men Able Moments and the well-being best practice that's happening in a lot of businesses that I'm seeing now, and obviously many that I'm involved in personally as well, is to get your teams talking. Because even I was walking around that exhibition thinking, wow, there's lots of stuff here I don't understand, lots of stuff I don't get, lots of stuff that's causing me to question what the future looks like and what's coming and how quickly that's coming. And if I was directly involved in anything to do with anywhere on the retail element of our industry, selling, servicing, MOTs, body shop, whatever it might be, I could understand that I'm going to do one of two things. I'm either going to put the blinkers up and resist looking at this stuff that's coming down the pipe or is here already, or I'm going to be quite anxious about what it actually means and where that's going to take me personally or my business or the people around me. So the key bit of, if you like, best practice in there for well-being is get your teams talking, get your teams together. And I know that traditionally, and certainly in many of the dealerships I've worked in or worked with, the service department and the sales team, not necessarily the best bedfellows, are they? Let's be honest. They don't often talk to each other. They don't often get on that well. And that's something that we need to change in order to be more resilient, be stronger, be tougher together to deal with all this change that's coming. We do need to get teams talking. So mental wealth means getting that investment made. Get your guys and girls together in a room. Doesn't have to be for long, an hour or two. And in fact, I did a post recently that said, give me 2 hours and I'll give you 10 back. And I stand by that. And, you know, it may be that you want to get me or somebody else to come in and facilitate that conversation or be a part of that conversation just to add an air of independence around it. But anyway, whichever way you do it, think about all this stuff that's going on. The industry is full of change, full of challenge, as is the wider world, of course. And all of that can create anxiety and stress and uncertainty and insecurity for people. So key bit in all of that, get your teams together, get them talking. You don't have to spend a lot of money by taking them off for an away day or any of that stuff. Just get them in a room talking about stuff that's going on for them. They will thank you for it. It may be slightly contrived and a bit odd at first, but if you get into the habit of doing it, then you will find that they will start talking to each other and supporting each other in a much more constructive way. So there you go. That's this month's Men Able Moments. Lots happening across our industry. And as I said, get your teams talking. That's the key bit. Lots and lots happening, as I say, across the industry. And if I didn't get a chance to say hello to you at AM Live this week, then hello. And for those that I did catch up with, isn't it great? Don't we have a great community in this sector? And, we've got all the ingredients to look out for each other. But it's really, really important that we talk as well. So if you want any help or support with any of that, give me a call. Contact me on LinkedIn. You know I'm on there, Stephen J. Whitton, or you can send me an email, stephen.whitton@menable.org. All right, take it easy and we'll speak soon.
Well, some great points well made by Stephen Whitton there. And it is interesting what he's saying about AI because, I've noticed this on the podcast when we're putting the headlines together, that we barely go a week now without mentioning AI in some shape or form. And it must be causing a lot of uncertainty out there, as Stephen's saying, in the showrooms, in the workshops as well.
Yeah, definitely, and it is a hot topic of conversation. One, who's using what, when they should use it, etc., and all that side of it. But again, there is that anxiety and concern of what jobs is it going to replace? Is it going to replace them, etc. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. But as Stephen Whitton has said there, it's time to talk, have those conversations, be open and honest with your colleagues, etc., around what's happening. And if you have got concerns, you can't get anything resolved if you don't actually talk about it and speak to somebody. So again, it was great to see Steve down at AM Live this week. We got a bit of a selfie together But yeah, great little event there. But that's it. I mean, hopefully we've covered everything this week. It's been a busy one with the headlines, and as always, you'll get the newsletter through your LinkedIn feed and email on Monday morning with the links of all today's headlines and the links to the full interviews of any recordings there. But cover a lot there, haven't we, in a short period of time, Curtis, this morning.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think we've got to the end now. So that is all for now. Many thanks for joining us on the Motor Trade Radio podcast. Don't forget to check out that interview we did with AION Auto Group. That's in your podcast feed. But until next time, it's goodbye from me,
and it's goodbye from him.
Thank you for listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. We'll be sharing all the URLs from this week's headlines on Monday morning. To make sure you receive them, just subscribe to the free newsletter on our LinkedIn page. Just search Motor Trade Radio Podcast.